The saint whose life we celebrate this morning, St. Martin de Porres, knew intimately what it was to be despised, to be thought of no standing, of little worth. A child of mixed race, born out of wedlock at Lima in the late 16th century, his noble Spanish father disowned him for some years, and after the birth of Martin's sister, gave the family no support. The boy received scant education, though he was later apprenticed to a barber surgeon. As a youth of mixed race, the law did not think him fit to be a religious brother. But he begged admission to the vast Dominican convent in the city as a menial servant, expected to carry out the very worst jobs in the priory. Finally admitted as a tertiary friar and then as a lay brother, he was insulted by a novice as a mulatto dog. You can only wonder what this did to his self-worth, his sense of self. When in later years the priory ran short of money and the prior went off to sell some of the house's more valuable items, Martin offered himself instead. Sell me. The prior, thank God, had the sense to tell Martin he was not for sale. The truly extraordinary thing is that Martin refused to treat others in the way that he had been treated. The abused did not become the abuser. Quite the opposite. If he had experienced the worst from other people, he also knew the profound love of God for him and for each and every person in Christ Jesus. Martin was famous for his smile, with all that implied about his regard for the other person whose presence he smiled upon. In a world, therefore, where life was held cheap, he demonstrated God's love for the lowly, above all by his gifts as a healer of the poor. He eventually became the convent's infirmarian, but his healing knew no bounds. Father Christopher de Toro later testified that to help the sick in their needs and afflictions, he penetrated the thickest walls and even the locked doors of the cells, and entered the most secret rooms of the novitiate at forbidden hours, having learned by divine revelation what the sick needed and suffered. He was bringing people back to the priory whom he found lying in the streets. A supposedly enclosed monastery was becoming a public hospital where the poor with no access to private doctors found respite. When the prior objected, Martin disobeyed when the casualty's needs were urgent, and then turned his sister's home into a ward for convalescents. And if Martin didn't respect boundaries between rich and poor, neither would he limit his care to the human. There are stories of cats and dogs and turkeys being treated, fed, and cured in his infirmary. In an unspeakably cruel and divisive world, Martin was a sign and instrument of God's infinite compassion, the worth God gives us. And Martin therefore remains an important inspiration, especially within the Dominican family. He reminds us of the attention and care owed to our fellow men and women, the respect owed even to those whom society despises or ignores. In our unequal world, where some lives appear to be worth more than others. And it's surely fitting that our saint is the patron of St. Martin's mission, the mission supporting the work for the poor of our fellow friars in the Caribbean. May St. Martin bless their work and encourage us to offer them our support.